November is National Adoption Month, and at any time, over 400,000 children in the U.S. are in the foster system. So joining us to talk about that education, that advocacy, and the work that she is doing is a foster mom herself. That's Deborah Olivia Farmer joining us here at 11 Alive. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I am very excited to have this conversation with you.
A very important conversation.
It is.
For so many people. And we know so many children who still need homes today. Can you talk to us a little bit about your personal story and how you got into this?
Absolutely. So I was introduced to the foster care industry back in the late 90s. I was working in local television in Chicago, and at the time, very involved in the community, working with different community service organizations. But I knew I wanted to mentor specifically a little girl. And so I was introduced to a little girl who happened to be in foster care. And so what was to be a one-year assignment of me tutoring her, mentoring her, has now formed into a 30-plus year relationship. And so during that time, I noticed while she was in foster care, she was moved from home to home. And so at that point, that's when it really sparked something in me to know that this was the work that I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And so that's when it began for me in the 90s.
And what's the reality like for those children that you're working with to not have that stability, to have to go from home to home?
Yeah, and so again, to the point of us, again, she was 9 years old when she came into my life. She's 34 now. And I wanted to make certain that I was a mainstay for her because there's so much inconsistency, not for all children in foster care. So I don't want to paint that narrative that this is the case for all, but for many, the inconsistency of being, placed from home to home. And so for me, again, I just wanted to be in a place to provide stability for her.
I absolutely love that. And then you have your own personal adoption story as well with your son.
Absolutely.
Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So again, of course, having that relationship with her, I knew this was something I always wanted to do. Of course, I got married later in life, worked the career path and all the things. And so I knew, again, this was not a fallback for me. This was something I always wanted to do. But then, of course, getting married later in life, of course, you had some infertility issues. And so, again, I had gone through that process, and then I adopted my child actually through foster care, through the foster care system. And so part of my advocacy work is to make certain that I'm educating people to move beyond the fear that they might have for this process. Most people don't understand that you can actually adopt a child through foster care, which is the route that I chose to take. And oftentimes when I share with people that this is what I've done, you get the oohs and the ahs, oh my God, I've always wanted to do this, and they don't move forward with the process. And so I just want to be in a position to educate those to move from fears to families.
What is the need right now in that space? Because like I was saying at the top, 400,000 children.
That's a large number, as we know, right? And so when we look at that number, and I'm specifically clearly advocating for Black women to get into the place that is our natural space of nurturing, right? And move beyond whatever the misconceptions, the myths might be, and move into a place of love. There are so many children that need our support, that need our love, and it's not just about them, it's about you. You get love in return. And so when I look at the numbers, 400,000 children in the system, right? You can look at the breakdown. What is that percentage of African American children that are in the system, right? There's 20% in the system of African American children. And so I think that's just a large number, and we can do something about that. If it's on your heart to be a mother, don't stay in a space of fear. Move into that place where you can get information. Go to an agency and find out how you can become a parent through the foster care system. Children need us.
Yes, and need us for life, because as we know, the foster system is not forever. Those kids, when they're 18, correct, age out of the system.
Yeah, and I think that's partly, for me, my biggest concern, because a lot of the children do age out of the system. Then what do you do?
Yeah.
And for those that might come from two-parent loving homes or single-parent homes, at 18, you're not in a position to be on your own. So imagine if you have the trauma from foster care, and now you're forced to live life on your own at 18. I don't believe that is a fair process. I don't believe that, the system is set up to have them to succeed when they're on their own after all the trauma that they've possibly have gone through.
I mean, caring for the youth is something that you hear a lot of politicians talk about.
Yeah.
Of course, here in Atlanta, Mayor Andre Dickens had his year of the youth.
Yes.
Of course, talking on the federal level about the abortion ban, making sure that babies are born. The question is, what happens after the babies are born? How are we taking care of them? What are you seeing on just the policy level, either in Washington or here in Georgia, and what needs to be done?
I think there needs to be more support around mental health, right? When you think about the trauma that happens, most of these children come from broken situations, and they might go into a family that's there to set them up for love. But if there's still trauma there, there needs to be some support around mental health support. And so when I think about, again, even those that might age out, they're not properly getting the mental health treatment that they need so that they can be productive citizens. And so I would love to see policy be more intentional about supporting, children that have aged out of the system, giving families also support that have children so that they can support them properly. And I think that's through mental health support and advocacy work.
Yeah. What about that process? You said you go and you speak to people, and they're like, "Oh, I would love to do that." Yeah. Maybe the process is intimidating. Maybe people don't know where to start. What was your process?
So for me, again, I did research on the agency that I wanted to foster my child through. So I had to get my foster care license. And after you've gotten your license, then you get calls. You have to go through. It sounds like it's intimidating. But again, if you are a relational person like myself, I formed a relationship with the agency. I was, very intentional about following up with questions because it is a large group of people that you might go through the class with. And so after you've gotten your call, then at that particular time, they place you with the child. And so my child, actually, we got the call a few days after birth. And so that doesn't always happen, right? And so I'm not to say that I was lucky, I was blessed. My child was placed in our home as a newborn. That's not always the case. But for those that get children that are placed a lot later, I'm hopeful that they get the support that they need to, to navigate through that process.
On a personal level, how has that experience been for you as a mom of an adopted child?
Yeah, so my son's 10 years old now, right? And, you have the ups and the downs, right? For me, again, he was placed as a newborn, so I'm the only mother that he knows, which is in one take very nice, right? It's great. But then I'm also very open and honest with him, and I share with him his process so there's no lies, right? So that we're making certain that he's well aware that this is nothing to be ashamed of, nothing to whisper about. And so it has been a little challenging because, of course, he's at the age now where he has questions, right? And so in asking those questions, I'm making certain that I'm able to give him a positive, a truthful response, and when I'm not, I'm able to get support so that I can provide him what he needs.
Yeah, and that was going to be my next question for children who, grow up and wonder, well, what happened to my mom who gave me birth or my dad? How do you navigate? And then you got Joshua as a newborn. What about a 16-year-old or a 15-year-old coming to a home? And how could foster parents and people who are looking to adopt navigate those situations?
And I think that's where a support system is necessary, right? And so most of these agencies, you have to keep in touch with them. They have classes to help you go through the process. There are groups, community organizations. What I have found along my process here is there are tons of advocacy groups that you just partner with. You go to seminars, you do webinars and things of that support. Some of these groups are in person, right? So you're able to, iron sharpens iron. So you're in a position so that if you have questions, someone that's been in the process a lot longer than yourself, they can help and support you through that. And it's really about building a community. This is not charity work, right? I want to make that very clear. This is building of a community. This is legacy work. It's not about your DNA, it's about your destiny. And what are you doing to provide support for those in need?
That's amazing. On the policy note, what would you say you're most concerned about right now?
Mental health support. I just believe that when we look at the world that we're living in today, there's a lot happening. And so to be able to provide a child that may have come from a broken support system, a broken family, entering into the world, they're going to need mental health support. And so I'm hoping that, policy can be intentional about supporting organizations, agencies, community groups, advocacy workers like myself in giving children who have aged out of the system the proper support for their mental, because a lot of it is really stemming from having that capacity to navigate through issues, through problems through life. We as adults, we have problems. We need therapy as well, and I believe that these children need that type of support. And I'm really hoping that our politicians lean more into that space and provide the mental health support that's necessary.
And what are you most optimistic about?
I think that, again, I'm finding that there are a lot of players in this space that are really intentional about advocating for a better future for children. And so I'm really optimistic that, we can continue to keep this message going, continue to support and advocate for not only children, but for others that might be on the fence, so that we can help them get across the finish line.
And before we go, in order to help that, you do have a couple books here.
Yes.
So we have Your Journey with Joshua, and From Fears to Families, Empowering Black Women and Their Foster Care and Adoption Journey. I'll give you that one.
Yes.
Are these guidebooks to helping people?
So this one here is more of a memoir. It just talks to my years of working in television and how I, again, became a parent through the foster care system later in life. And this here is after that particular process. I had so many people that were like, oh my God, this is what I want to do, but they did not move forward. And so I figured that there had to be some sort of barrier in place. And so I thought to put together a toolkit to help them.
There you go.
That's exactly what it is. It's a toolkit to help them with the steps. What are the misconceptions? What's the first thing I need to do is to find an agency.
Look, it's all right there.
Yeah, it's all here.
Deborah, thank you so much for coming in. We truly appreciate it. Want to put that message out there, educate all of Atlanta and beyond. For those of you watching, we will be putting more information about this at 11alive.com and the full interview there as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.